We're going to talk about this, bringing in Matt Schlapp, Stephen Murphy, and Shelby Holliday. Matt, a lot of people were really surprised that ultimately maybe Bernie Sanders was going to come into the fold, but he's done it somewhat quicker than he had been advertising, although it took him a lot longer than Hillary went behind, to get behind Barack Obama. What do you make of this, and how do you think his supporters are going to react?
If you look at the polls, Charles, his supporters are just not enamored with Hillary Clinton, especially you look at the pockets where he was really strong, like young voters or millennials. Two polls have come out that show that 50% of those voters just don't really want to support Hillary Clinton. 72% in a recent poll of millennial supporters said Hillary Clinton's not honest or trustworthy. So she has big issues. Actually, as a Republican watching this today, and you see Sanders against Clinton standing up there on the stage, you can see why Sanders is a lot more appealing, and it just almost shows that Hillary Clinton is a very weak candidate.
Stephen, as a Democratic strategist, I'm sure you'll point out that historically these things happen. A lot of Hillary Clinton supporters said they wouldn't back Barack Obama, but she gave up a lot. Barack Obama didn't give up a lot. She has given up virtually the entire Democratic platform to get this endorsement.
Well, understand one thing here about what's going on in the election. Hillary Clinton is winning a significantly higher percentage of Democrats already than Donald Trump is of Republicans. So whereas there may be some dissatisfaction among some Sanders voters about Hillary being the nominee, they're already for Hillary Clinton. And in terms of the way the race goes forward now, the notion that there's some type of shift to the left, these issues that Bernie Sanders is talking about, issues like a $15 minimum wage and trade deals that benefit the American workers. Heck, Donald Trump is for that. Now, there's no shift to the left going on.
Here's the irony.
This is where the American voters are today.
Here's the irony. Sanders didn't get what he wanted on trade, but he did get the student debt. He did get the free college. He did get the minimum wage. And these are things that are not in Hillary's wheelhouse. This is not why Wall Street has put millions of dollars behind Hillary Clinton. So she's going to have some issues with respect to some of her core donors. But Shelby, we're talking about millennials here because this is where Bernie Sanders either will or will not deliver. Polling-wise, Hillary does very well in the polls, but the enthusiasm, will they actually show up to go vote for her? Right now, it's a huge question mark.
It's a huge question mark. The enthusiasm has not been there throughout the primaries. I do think what was really important about today is Bernie Sanders is painting Donald Trump as a villain. And if he can convince all of his millennial followers that they have a choice between a terrible president and Clinton, who maybe they're not excited about, but who Bernie says would do better for the country, they may actually go out and vote. And that's the big issue here for millennials, is whether or not they'll show up to the polls. And Bernie can mobilize them if he presents that choice to them, if he excites them about some of the progressive platforms, not necessarily the candidate. I think a lot of them will actually stay tuned to the election and maybe go vote in November.
We're getting back to that old, that big question that I thought was answered before this election cycle. More people vote for someone they like rather than against someone they don't like. But, Matt, to Shelby's point, I thought when Bernie layered it on pretty thick about the Supreme Court, Citizens United, billionaires buying elections, there's pressure on Republicans or Donald Trump to put more money into the election, defending women's rights to choose, defending the LGBT, defending workers against those greedy, unscrupulous, rich business people, defending minorities, defending the environment. These are all issues that he did differ in a large part with Donald Trump. Aside from trade, where they are almost simpatico, it sets up traps, I think, for Donald Trump in any of these areas between now and November to slip up and say something wrong in any of these things.
Yeah, no, there's no question. This is a good day for Hillary Clinton. This shows unity in the party. Charles, the one thing I think is this is about as late as they possibly could stage this endorsement, because the RNC convention is already getting started and the Democratic convention is right after. And I think what we're going to see with Clinton is she is going to be able to lock down most Democrats because she is a traditional, she's what you expect if you're a Democratic voter. But Donald Trump is the big question mark. He's not always been a Republican. He's sometimes been a Democrat. He gave money to Hillary Clinton in the past. Does he put together some kind of new and different coalition, which includes appeal, which shows in poll after poll to some of these Bernie Sanders supporters who view Hillary Clinton as a tool of two towns, New York and Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill and Wall Street. That's what she's a tool of, and the fact that she's for all these big policy questions that the big banks and the big companies want. Can Trump put that new coalition together? That's what this election is about.
You know, Stephen, that's a fantastic point. Listen, the American public is tired of that incestuous relationship between that corridor between D.C. and Wall Street where they just get rich, they make the laws for each other, and they all get rich again. And I think you're starting to see that with independents. In virtually every poll I've seen, Donald Trump has a lead among independents. The trustworthiness issue is not going to help Hillary with respect to that. And this big business, establishment, government type is not going to help her either.
You know, Donald Trump may have a small lead among independents. 4 years ago, Romney won independents handily and still lost the election because there are more Democrats than Republicans, and it's a disaster.
There are more registered independents, though, more recently. I mean, if you want to talk about the...
There's more independents than there are Republicans.
Well,
yes, that's true.
And that's one heck of a correlation, Shelby, because think about this for a moment. All the primaries that were open primaries, in other words, where you can vote for any candidate regardless of political registration, we saw Donald Trump win those huge, and we saw Bernie Sanders win those huge. That's why Michigan is up for grabs. That's why some of these other key swing states are up for grabs.
You're right, and it's all about the Rust Belt this year. That's where Donald Trump's looking for victories in November. And those are the areas where Hillary Clinton did not do well, in those states like Michigan, Wisconsin. That's what makes the VP choice so important. If Trump can pick a VP that helps him win that Rust Belt coalition of states, he has a shot at winning this election. And that's why this Hillary Clinton-Bernie Sanders event was so important. Sanders has to get those white working-class voters on board with Clinton if the Democrats want to beat Donald Trump and actually think that they can win by a landslide. They may not win by a landslide. There's a big question mark in this election.
All right, guys, let's leave it there for a moment.